Relationships aren't about guessing, they're about sensing, understanding, and showing up fully as yourself. Try the ears method. Practice it consistently and watch as your awareness of his attention, his interest, and even his desire transforms the way you experience connection. You ever wondered why sometimes without a single word exchanged, you just know someone is thinking about you? That feeling isn't intuition alone, it's science. Humans are wired for connection in ways most people overlook. And the truth is, there are subtle, measurable signs that reveal what's happening in someone's mind long before they say it aloud. It starts with understanding that attraction and thought aren't purely physical. They're energetic, emotional, and psychological. When someone is focused on you, even momentarily, their brain and body send signals, often unconsciously, that ripple into your interactions. Think about the moments when you felt a sudden warmth from a friend's gaze or a flutter in your chest during a conversation. Those aren't coincidences. They are micro-expressions, shifts in tone, and subconscious gestures that your mind can detect if you know what to look for. Emotional connection works on multiple levels: verbal, nonverbal, and even instinctual. Your body senses things before your mind fully registers them, and when you learn to recognize those cues, you start seeing patterns that were invisible before. Science shows that our brains respond to people who are thinking about us with a measurable increase in attention and awareness. For example, when someone's thoughts are focused on you, their gestures, the way they structure sentences, or the timing of their interactions subtly change. You might notice that their messages arrive at consistent times, or they mention seemingly random details that they couldn't have remembered otherwise. It's not magic. It's the neurological equivalent of a footprint left in conversation. When you tune in, you can literally feel these footprints, these traces of thought, and that's where the method I'm about to show you comes in. It's also important to understand that this connection is two-way. The moment you start noticing these signals, you're not just reading him, you're interacting with him on a deeper emotional level. You become attuned to the rhythm of his attention, the way his focus shifts, and even the small hesitations or inflections in his voice. All of this creates a map, a pattern of behavior and attention that reveals not only what he's thinking, but also the depth of his feelings. The beauty of this method lies in its simplicity. It doesn't require elaborate strategies or complicated mind games. It requires awareness, observation, and presence. By understanding the science behind emotional connection, you gain the ability to sense when someone truly has you on their mind. And once you have that awareness, your confidence in reading relationships skyrockets. You stop doubting yourself, second-guessing his actions, or wondering if he's really invested. You start trusting your own perception, and that trust alone transforms how you relate, how you feel, and how you show up in every interaction. This is why the first step is always understanding the science, because when you know what to look for, when you understand how emotional signals travel and how attention manifests, you gain clarity. You're no longer guessing. You're feeling, sensing, and connecting in ways that are entirely natural, entirely intuitive, and entirely empowering. Now that we understand the science behind emotional connection, let's talk about how to actually tune in, how to take that awareness and turn it into something tangible, something you can feel for yourself. Because here's the truth. Knowing the signs is only half the battle. The real power comes when you develop a method to perceive them consistently. And the method I'm about to share is simple, subtle, and immediately actionable. It doesn't rely on overthinking, analyzing every message, or trying to manipulate him. It's about harnessing your own perception and letting your intuition work in alignment with reality. The first step is stillness. I know it sounds basic, but it's the foundation. Before you can sense his thoughts, you need to quiet your own mind. Most people are so busy guessing, worrying, or projecting what they hope will happen that they completely miss the signals that are right in front of them. Take a moment, whether it's a minute, 5 minutes, or even just during a quiet conversation, to center yourself. When your mind is calm, your body naturally becomes more attuned to subtle changes in energy, tone, and attention. That's the space where connection becomes perceptible. Focus on patterns rather than individual actions. One-off gestures, messages, or comments can be misleading, but when you start noticing trends, a picture begins to form. Does he reach out more after certain interactions? Do his responses subtly shift when you mention something personal or meaningful? These patterns are like breadcrumbs. They map out his attention and give you a clear sense of where his thoughts are consistently going. Then comes the practice of feeling without forcing. This is key. You don't want to overanalyze. You just want to observe and notice. When you feel a sudden energy shift, a little spark of certainty, or a sense of anticipation, pause. Don't push it aside as coincidence. That is your internal radar picking up on his focus. A simple, quiet acknowledgement, I feel that he's thinking of me right now, reinforces your ability to tune in. Over time, this becomes instinctive. You'll notice the feeling before the evidence. And that's when you know the method is working. Another critical element is grounding yourself in confidence. This isn't about ego, it's about presence. When you feel secure and clear in yourself, your awareness sharpens and you can read signals without projection. Confidence amplifies perception because it removes the static of doubt. The more grounded you are, the clearer the connection becomes. Apply this method consistently in everyday life. It doesn't have to be dramatic or obsessive. Even small moments like noticing the way he responds to your stories, remembering patterns in his behavior, or feeling his focus in shared spaces strengthen your connection. The more you practice, the more intuitive it becomes until you reach a point where you don't have to guess. You simply feel it. This is the beauty of the method. It turns uncertainty into clarity, curiosity into insight, and guessing into knowing. And when you can consistently feel when he's thinking about you, everything changes. Not because you control him, but because you understand him, understand yourself, and show up fully present in every interaction. Understanding why this method works requires a little dive into the psychology behind his mind. Most people think that someone's thoughts are private and inaccessible, but the reality is that human behavior follows patterns. Our brains are wired to respond to what we value, what we desire, and who captures our attention. When a man is thinking about you, consciously or unconsciously, it triggers predictable psychological responses that manifest in subtle ways. These responses are not random. They are deeply rooted in how the human mind processes attachment, attraction, and focus. One key principle is that attention equals energy. Whatever he is thinking about, even if only briefly, his mind and body direct energy toward that thought. This can show up in small ways: a message sent at an exact time, a spontaneous comment about something you recently said, or even a gesture that seems coincidental but isn't. The more emotionally invested he is, the more noticeable these cues become. When you start learning to recognize these patterns, you realize that the evidence of his thoughts is everywhere. It's just a matter of knowing how to interpret it. Another psychological insight is that men often think in sequences or patterns rather than abstractly. When he is emotionally engaged, his thoughts frequently follow a loop. He recalls moments that matter, imagines future interactions, and evaluates his feelings. This loop creates behaviors you can observe. He reaches out more consistently. He remembers details. He mirrors your energy in conversation. By understanding this, you stop seeing his actions as random and start seeing them as a logical reflection of what he values, of what occupies his mind. Humans have a natural bias toward connection. When someone is important to us, our brains prioritize thinking about them, even without conscious effort. This means that if he's genuinely interested, his focus on you isn't forced, it's automatic. And automatic behavior is more detectable than deliberate behavior. That's why learning to tune into these automatic cues, timing of messages, body language, tone of voice, responsiveness, is so powerful. Once you recognize these patterns, you can feel his attention before he even articulates it. It's also crucial to consider perception versus projection. Psychology teaches us that people often project their hopes and fears onto others, which cloud judgment. This is why a structured method to observe and interpret his behavior is so valuable. It removes assumptions and allows you to see objective patterns. You start noticing not just what he says, but how he says it, when he initiates contact, and how consistent his focus is. These are the real indicators of whether he's thinking about you or not. Understanding his psychology empowers you. The goal isn't to manipulate or control, it's to read the signals accurately and respond authentically. When you know how his mind works, you can engage with clarity, confidence, and calm. You stop guessing, overanalyzing, or doubting yourself. Instead, you feel secure in your intuition because it is informed by real patterns and real understanding. Psychology gives you the key to move from uncertainty to certainty, to feel when he's thinking of you rather than merely hoping you are. Awareness is more than just noticing signs or patterns. It's a form of empowerment. When you truly understand the subtle cues that indicate he's thinking about you, you gain a sense of control over your own experience, not over him. This is where most people get it wrong. They think awareness is about tracking or manipulating someone else. But real empowerment comes from being fully present, fully informed, and fully confident in how you perceive and respond to interactions. The moment you start paying attention intentionally, you step out of uncertainty and into clarity. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself overanalyzing a message, replaying a conversation, or wondering whether he cares enough? That mental energy is exhausting and often leads to doubt. Awareness changes all of that. It gives you the ability to see the reality of the situation without creating stories in your head. You learn to read the signals as they are, not as you hope they are. And when you do this consistently, you naturally feel stronger, calmer, and more self-assured. You stop guessing about his thoughts because you can feel them subtly but unmistakably through the cues he's already giving. Another powerful part of awareness is how it reshapes your interactions. When you understand that his attention and thought patterns are observable, you begin to respond more intentionally. You speak with more confidence, engage with more presence, and project the energy that naturally draws him closer. The more attuned you are, the more authentic your connection becomes because your responses are informed by clarity rather than anxiety or uncertainty. This awareness doesn't just tell you about him, it tells you about yourself too. You start recognizing your own feelings, your boundaries, and the energy you bring into relationships. That self-knowledge is magnetic. Empowerment through awareness also protects you from unnecessary worry. When you can sense his attention patterns and know when he's thinking about you, you stop interpreting silence as rejection or minor actions as disinterest. You trust your perception, and trust is everything in relationships. It allows you to engage freely, enjoy the moment, and make decisions based on understanding rather than fear. You become less reactive and more intentional, which creates a natural confidence that's impossible to fake. Awareness gives you choice. When you can accurately sense where his thoughts are, you can choose how to respond in a way that aligns with your values and your emotional needs. You're no longer a passenger in your own feelings. You're in the driver's seat. You can show up as someone who is self-assured, radiant, and grounded, which naturally amplifies your presence in any dynamic. This isn't about forcing him to think about you. It's about understanding, feeling, and responding with intelligence, grace, and confidence. Empowerment through awareness is the bridge between uncertainty and clarity. It's the skill that transforms the guessing game of relationships into an experience of connection that is intuitive, confident, and deeply satisfying. Once you embrace it, you'll never look at interactions the same way again. You'll read them, feel them, and respond to them with a power that comes from knowing yourself and understanding the signals he's already sending. When it comes to sensing when he's thinking about you, awareness and methods are powerful, but only if you avoid the common mistakes that can easily throw you off. Most women unintentionally sabotage themselves, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they misunderstand what these signals really mean. One of the biggest mistakes is overanalyzing every word, every gesture, or every message. If you obsess over tiny details, you start imagining patterns that aren't actually there, creating anxiety instead of clarity. The key is to observe consistently, notice trends, and allow your intuition to guide you without forcing interpretations. Another mistake is relying too much on external validation. Some women wait for proof, an exact text, a call, or a verbal confirmation for trusting their instincts. But by doing this, you disconnect from the subtle signals that are already present. The reality is that attention is often shown through small unconscious behaviors, a certain timing of messages, a slight change in tone, or a body language cue when you're together. These signs matter far more than anything explicitly stated. And the moment you start focusing only on the obvious, you miss the richness of real connection. A third pitfall is projecting your own fears or insecurities onto him. You might assume that a delay in response means disinterest, or that a casual comment reflects a lack of care. This is projection, and it clouds your perception. The truth is that his thoughts and intentions exist independently of your assumptions. Learning to observe without judgment, without layering your own narrative on top, is what allows you to see the signals clearly and respond in a confident, grounded way. Another common mistake is trying to force the connection. Some women attempt to create signs or elicit reactions in order to confirm that he's thinking about them. This not only backfires, but also diminishes your natural presence and authenticity. Connection doesn't need to be manufactured, it needs to be read. The more you trust your method and your awareness, the more you can simply observe and feel rather than creating pressure or expectations that distort reality. A critical error is ignoring your own intuition and emotional responses. Many women get so focused on decoding his signals that they neglect how they themselves feel in the process. Your intuition is your internal guide. It's often the first thing you notice when someone is genuinely thinking about you. Ignoring that gut feeling or second-guessing it leads to doubt, frustration, and misinterpretation. When you honor your own feelings and combine them with careful observation, you create a balanced and accurate understanding of his attention. Avoiding these mistakes transforms the way you experience connection. You stop overanalyzing, projecting, or seeking constant validation, and instead move into a space of clarity and confidence. You begin to feel when he's thinking about you, not because you forced it, but because you're attuned to the reality of the situation. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, and the more empowered you feel in every interaction, every message, and every shared moment. Let's bring it all together. The truth is, knowing when he's thinking about you isn't about guessing, obsessing, or trying to control his mind. It's about tuning in, being aware, and understanding the subtle signals that are always there if you know how to notice them. When you combine science, psychology, observation, and your own intuition, you create a powerful ability to feel his attention without overthinking or doubting yourself. This method gives you clarity, confidence, and empowerment. It helps you step out of uncertainty and into presence. You stop reading into every little thing and start sensing the truth of his focus. You begin to respond naturally, authentically, and gracefully, which doesn't just change how he interacts with you, it transforms how you feel in the process. This isn't about manipulation or control. It's about understanding, awareness, and self-assured connection. When you practice this consistently, you'll notice a shift, not just in him, but in yourself. You'll feel more grounded, more confident, and more in tune with the dynamics of your relationships. Take what you've learned, apply it, and trust yourself. observe the patterns, feel the energy, and allow your intuition to guide you. Because once you master this, you won't have to wonder anymore. You'll just know. And that knowing, that's the ultimate power. You'll step into every interaction with certainty, with clarity, and with the confidence that comes from understanding the signals that were always there, waiting for you to notice. Your awareness is your superpower. And when you combine it with this method, you transform not only your relationships, but your own sense of self. This is the path from doubt to certainty, from guessing to knowing, and from uncertainty to true connection.